Alright, so today we're going to be working on the Outback, and more specifically we're going to attempt to install this AEM fuel pump here. So this one is a, what is it, 50-1215, and this is their 320 liters per hour 85 rated pump. So here's what it comes with. Here's the pump itself. And I think what the part number means is this is just the 1200 designates the pump, and the 15 just refers to something more application specific, like what it comes with. Like in this case, it comes with this rectangular filter and this plug with 2 O-rings. So I believe all the 1200 should be the same. But anyway, supposedly the internet says this will go on the car with, basically an 8mm of Phillips screwdriver and some pliers, so we'll see if that's the case. Alright, so here's the rear seats, and to remove them there are two of those latches, one on each side. It's about here, and supposedly the way to remove it is just to give it a good old tug and it should pop out. So we'll see how that goes. Alright, so yeah, I guess that worked. So I'll do the same on the other side, and you can see the latch here. Now, one thing that I am doing is, because I know the latch is here, I'm not pulling the seat up here or anything like that. I'm basically putting each of my hands right next to the latches and just, applying the force as close to it as possible. Yep. And there's the other one. The seat belt actually just passes through here, so now this is free. So probably not a bad idea also, while this is out, just to give this area a clean. Now that I look at it, it wouldn't hurt to give it a good vacuum back there. So before we put it back together, we'll do that also. But for now, the seat is out. So the actual fuel pump assembly is gonna be under the passenger side, so the side without this harness. So what you want to do is now remove these 4 bolts. These are just Phillips head screws, and it should give you access to the fuel pump hanger assembly thing. So let's do that. When you are working with Phillips screws, especially on older cars or whatever, you want to do your best to not strip them if you can. So what I'm doing is, with each of these screws, I'm going to put my weight on the head of the screw, then turn it to break it loose. So just like that. Alright, so now this is just held on by adhesive, I think. Yep. So I guess it looks like this has never been worked on before. So rat's nest, maybe. But okay, anyway, so here is the fuel pump assembly. So wow. So what you're gonna do next is undo this electrical connection here, undo these fuel lines, and there are just these, I believe they're 8mm bolts that you gotta remove, and the assembly should pull out with this handle here. So let's do that next. Alright, so now with that uncovered, what you're gonna do is pull this harness off, pull these 3 clips off, and then undo these 8mm bolts. So this is just a simple, or hopefully. Yeah, okay. So that plugs out like that. And these fuel lines look like they're just, push this in, maybe. Yeah, so, oh, yeah, of course that's gonna happen. So push these pins in and then pull the connector out afterwards. So. Now I'll try and show you how to do this one, because this one is the easiest. So push these tabs in, and then as you're pushing this in, pull on the connector like that. You really don't know what having the disadvantages of having to work with one hand, so. But I promise, if you push on these and pull the fuel line, it'll come out like that. So, and set those aside. Alright, so now I have my 8mm ratchet, so I'm going to be undoing these, and also off camera I just cleaned this to the best of my ability, just so that it doesn't, just to minimize the risk of debris falling through when we remove this pump. So these are 8mm. Yeah, and it's the cut. And just pull up on this, remove it out of the way. Now, this assembly is just spring loaded, so just pull up on this as well. And actually, before you do that, that's why I got this tub, so that you don't make a huge mess when you're doing this. And I'm going to actually take this inside to work on it. Yeah, that's clean enough, I think. And what I'm also gonna do is use a few of the paper towels to just cover this while I do this, while I install a new fuel pump. Alright, so now we have this. This is just the fuel. I drained it into this tub here. We're gonna want to split these two halves first. So what we're gonna want to do first is unplug these two connections, and then there's just these clips all around like that you're gonna use to split the two halves. So okay, so that's one. I think this is just a fuel pump wire, and this is the sender. So what I'm doing is I have a very small flathead, and I am going under here, and I am pushing this clip. At the same time, I'm pushing the connector out that way with this. So now I'm going to, I don't know how I'm going to. Yeah, so basically what you're gonna have to do is apply pressure in two of those points and just work one latch at a time until you're able to get that out. So now we have this. As you can see, there's a little bit of debris in here. I go ahead and clean this out while you're at it. And now we will, but I'll put this here for now. And we are looking at this. Okay, and what we're gonna do next is, I think, remove this line and this line here. So so what I'm also noticing is, as I'm pulling these, there's a O-ring here, and also, well, both the lines that I pulled really. So yeah, you can see here there's an O-ring, and here there's an O-ring as well. So I think that's what the kit is. So the kit came with two O-rings also, so we'll be replacing those when we put it back together. Okay. Next, what you're gonna do is, you can see when you compress this, there's this clip here. So you're gonna want to remove that. I think I'm gonna try and use the same tool to just pry this out. Maybe. Yep. And don't lose this. Okay. Yep, so now we have this free. There's gonna be 2 tabs here and here that's gonna still hold a fuel pump on there. You can access the tabs on this side, so I think what I'm gonna try to do is use the same thing and get it unclipped, maybe push down a little bit at the same time. That was actually quite a bit of a struggle, and what ended up working for me was I got 2 small screwdrivers, pry tools, whatever, and then I pried one tab open like that, and one tab open like this, and crossed them like this, and I held it like this while wiggling this pump, and eventually it came out. So, you know, and there's an O-ring here also. So, you know, expect a bit of a struggle with this, but you know, you'll get it in the end if you keep on trying. So now we can start reassembling, and hopefully this should be the easy part. So we have the fuel pump here. And here they are in comparison. So as far as I can see, pretty much all dimensions of this looks to be the same, and it looks like you're going to transfer this step and this O-ring into the new pump. So this comes out, maybe. Yeah. So transfer this over, and we're gonna use a new O-ring actually. So like that. Now you can, I'll put the sock on later. You can put the fuel, or yeah, you can assemble the fuel pump back into the housing. So that should just click on through. Maybe. So far, pretty straightforward. Okay, now I'm going to install this. So press this on, and they also give you this little locking hardware that you press on this to finish locking it in. So alright, so maybe there's an easier way to do this, but you know, it's going slowly, and basically what I'm doing here is using a tool to press down evenly on each side, and it doesn't really click or anything. You just, I guess, pressing it as far as you can, and you know, call that good. Alright, so I worked a little bit more on the lock ring, and this is about as good as I'm going to be able to get it. So I'm gonna call that good. You can give it also the tug test, and you know, it seemed like this was pretty secure on it without this anyway, and this is just an added security. So I'm gonna call that good and reassemble the rest of the unit. So that means we got this. Whoops. plug in the fuel pump itself. So in my case, I didn't actually have to use the line that or use the harness that it came with, because this plug just fits straight into the AEM unit. So I'm going to put this circlip back on. So compress this and push this back in there. Okay. Now plug this in. So I'm actually going to leave these O-rings in here, but feel free to replace them. I only have one left, and my OCD will get me if I replace one and not the other. And these O-rings look fine, so I'm just going to leave them in place and click these lines back in. And now you could put these two halves back in. I rinsed this out and wiped it dry, just to get a lot of the big chunks out of there, I guess. Maybe I could do a little bit better. And then put the two halves back together. And this one also has an O-ring right here, which corresponds to there. Yep, right there. And finally, plug this back in, and it should be ready to go back into the car. Alright, so now we're back inside the car and it's getting dark, but remove the whatever cover you were using before. And what we're gonna do is push the sender through the tank first, and then the rest of the way. And the orientation of this is gonna end up something like this, with the plug going towards the front of the car. So here's where we're at. So I have the rubber gasket back in here. I'm going to push the fuel pump assembly down like this, and then put this cover over it and start a couple of the screws and yeah, finish it off that way. So one thing to note is that there are some, if you look at this, man, I can't do both. This hole right here and this hole here are locators. So you can see over there, there's a rubber dowel that you have to line up before you put this back in. So you can see here I have it wrong, so I'm going to fix that and start on some of these bolts. Alright, so that ended up being tougher than I thought it would be. So what you have to do, or what I was having issues with, was I was having issues with aligning the fuel pump gasket to the plastic assembly, to the retainer, to the locating bolts. So basically what was happening was every time I tried to insert this, the gasket would fall out of place and they would not seat, or these grommets would get misaligned right there and not seat, or these lines would get in the way and I had to adjust this retainer, which would cause everything to also unseat. So what ended up working for me was, and even that took a couple tries, was I pulled the entire assembly back out. I seated this into the retainer, and then I put the retainer on the plastic pump assembly, and then I pressed it down all together. And you just have to try a couple times because these lines are gonna get in the way and cause you to mess up. But once you have that down, start a few of the nuts, and if you're able to do that, then you should be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of these nuts and call it for the night. So yeah, let's do that. Alright, and as last step, reconnect all your lines. Okay, so now we have all the fuel lines, excuse me, and the electrical harness connected. So now you could put this cover back on, screw it all together, and we're gonna be done. Now I'm not gonna put the back seat back in because I want to be able to, I guess, test this. So I want to be able to easily pull this back out if I need to. So I'm not gonna do that. But if you already have a battery hooked up, you have a complete car basically, then all you could do at this point is just key on and listen for the fuel pump to come on. So and then you will know if it works or not. Again, you really just need 2 hands here, and these don't have to be very tight. That is